Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham. So we are on the topic of what is the cause of bondage. This jiva who commits two mistakes, and those mistakes are costly. And one of the costliest mistakes is to try to look for perfection in some person, because we take that which is perfect, which is the most treasured, the most delicious, the most full, the most complete. And so we then attempt to look at a person and look for those qualities of, I want a holistic person, I want someone that's, complete in their, conduct, and, it's 100% mature and dharmic, and all these qualities we look in them. And so this is part of our era, that we want to find this perfection in the world. And yet the very perfection is who you are. So then the verse says, then what is the cause of this error, this bondage? And the answer is now given, entitled verse 40, how the truth is veiled. Akhanda nitya advaya bodha shaktya spurantam atmanam ananta vaibhavam samavarnoti avrti shaktihi esha tamomayi rahuh eva arka bimbam. How is it that we are veiled? Why are we veiled? Why don't we know this truth? And the verse answers, this Maya's power of veiling, which consists predominantly of tamas, covers this Atma that is shining with the power of the indivisible non-dual awareness without beginning and end. As even Rahu covers the disk of the sun, like the tiny moon eclipses the sun. Okay, so this is the answer. So the verse starts by saying, what is it that is self-evident? What is the self-evident Atma? And he uses some words. It's akhanda. It's indivisible. Now look at this. If the self is indivisible, then can your self be different from somebody else's self? Because that's divisibility. You see, so when you say I am, it's exactly the same I am as my own I am, as somebody else's I am. It's one I am, because it's indivisible. So there's no special I am. There's no enlightened I am that my I am is not. You see this? The error we make? We look at Buddha, for example, and we say his I am, he is enlightened. You see what we're doing? We're putting his reality as enlightened, and therefore mine is not. That's divisibility. Because his is enlightened, and there's an edge, and mine is not. So there is no division, because Atma is the only reality. It is the whole. So there's no place, if it's the whole, there's no place where I will not find self. There is no outside of self, somewhere different, where I have to sort of look outside this self and go, I found the real self. If it's indivisible, then by definition it must be through and through you too, right now. Because if it's not, if you exclude yourself from that which is indivisible, then it's no longer indivisible. It's no longer Atma. So this means there's something about you that is already this truth right now. And what else is it? It is nityam. It is without a beginning and an end. It never dies. It never lowers intensity. You see, we often have this idea, and I don't think it's in all spiritual circles, but I think some Western circles, where they have this idea of levels of consciousness. Where, no, I understand, his or her level of consciousness is elevated. They use this word ascended. They got ascended level of consciousness. And one day, my consciousness will begin, right? It will be that. It will also be that. That means it will start being that. But here it's nityam. That consciousness never begins. That means you will never gain somebody else's consciousness. Think about that. There will never be a time when you meet someone, some beautiful, shining character, and you go, wow, I want what you have. I want your level of consciousness, because you've committed a mistake. Again, you said, I want my present consciousness to end, my level of consciousness to end, and I want your level, your ascended level of consciousness to begin. That's never going to happen. One will be waiting forever. So if it never began, then it can never end. And anything in between, it must mean it's exactly the same. Therefore, find me one person, some saint in the books, some magical enlightened saint, which the books talk about, and sometimes gets spread through the spiritual circles of some enlightened being. Find me that enlightened being, and then tell me, what do you see in that enlightened being? What makes them so enlightened? Tell me. Is it their behavior? Isn't that so? We usually look at someone, it's how they speak, how they conduct themselves. It's how they carry themselves. But have they carried themselves like that since day one of birth? No. In other words, their carrying themselves has a beginning and an end. And yet here I am saying, oh, how you carry yourself now in your prime years when they're still okay. Just watch them in a few years when they go cuckoo. Now that so-called professionalism and that behavior and that divinity that they carry and that sparkle in the eye, all that has ended. Therefore, once again, a mistake has been committed. I looked for an attribute in the body to find a person that's liberated. It is what never begins and never ends. Therefore, I will never find enlightenment in the body of somebody or in your own body. Like a smell. Some people believe, if you're liberated, you smell like sage. Basically. So now you go around the world getting a whiff of everyone, trying to see and test if they're enlightened, because, I want to see sage. Are they going to smell like sage when you drop them in a sewer? No. So the sage has ended. So you can't look for any attribute that you smell or see or hear, because that attribute has begun. This is a common mistake that people may commit all the time. They have some special, Amazonian jungle, substance, and then they say, I was in touch with oneness. Oneness for me began. No, it's ineffable. You can't describe it. It's beyond words. And I say to them, interesting. And that which you're speaking of, was that there before you took this substance? Of course not. That's why I went there. I wanted this thing to begin. Well, I'm sorry to say, but your so-called non-dual experience was not true non-duality. Because you had one experience that began and ended. And it was distinct from another experience. But here it says, the true self is indivisible. So in other words, here I have a non-dual experience dividing itself from all of the other experiences, and I call that one a non-dual experience. Clearly haven't understood what non-duality means. Non-duality means something that must be true in all states of experience, no matter how spectacular or mundane, because it is indivisible. No mind experience can cut it and isolate it and go, boom, that is oneness. Because you're dividing it and you're saying it now began. A moment ago it hasn't. Now it is. So you will never find a time when it begins, and you will never find a time when it ends, and there will never be a time when you have isolated this Atma into some special presence of a divine being. I was with the divine being, I sat down and I felt the presence of oneness. Error, because it began. It is Advaya. There's no second. It's just like indivisible. And Ananta Vai Bhavana, it is all pervasive. If it's all pervasive, again, this is reiterating what I said, it is indivisible. If it's indivisible, then it must be by definition everywhere. It's all pervasive. If it's all pervasive, can it be excluded from you? So now, if it's not excluded from you, why do we then look for it in the future? Because that means it's not all pervasive. That means it doesn't occupy the future. That means it only occupies the future. It doesn't occupy the present. So if it's all pervasive, that means you must have it already. You cannot be excluded from it. But then why do I not see it? Because, again, it is upadi mixed up with the true self. Okay. Again, let me ask the same question according to the verse. Why do we not know it? Automatically, according to the verse, because of the veiling power of Maya. In other words, you don't recognize the truth. Why? Because consciousness enjoys a power called Maya, and this Maya is able to create this universe of forms. And its power, one of its powers is called Avarana Shakti. Avarana Shakti. It just means power to veil. Like the clouds veil the sun. So it veils. So now when it veils, the reason it veils is it has to create duality. That's how you create duality. By veiling red in order to show green. I veil green to show blue. If I just show it all at once, you don't have distinct colors anymore. You have just everything at once. To create a tiger, I have to hide the mouse. To create a mouse, I have to hide the bird features from the mouse. To create a female, I have to hide male organ from the female to create a female, and vice versa. So when it comes to creating differences in this world, Maya's power, this Avarana Shakti, it simply hides something in order to make it a distinct form. Simple. But now when this hiding power operates at the level of your mind, it hides so many things from you. And we all are a testimony of this being born. We don't know anything, let alone who you are. I mean, forget about that. Just basic walking and language and mathematics and so on. You don't know any of that. So this means there's something about that is hiding information from you. Basics of the basics are hidden. So if I don't know basic English and basic communication and basic etiquette and basic, conduct, then what to say about knowing who you are? That too is hidden from you. That's why everyone, as we said, engages with a certain action. Why? To complete oneself. What does that imply? That I think that I am not complete right now. What does that mean? There is ignorance about this I, which always does for the sake of enjoyment, completion. So why is there ignorance of the truth? Because of this veiling power. And since when did this veiling power start? Well, if consciousness, if the reality is nityam, without a beginning, and this power, we said it's a power of consciousness, thus this power is also without a beginning, then for how long have you been ignorant of your true nature? Without a beginning. And here we are now, in one life, where the teacher finds you, where the teaching finds you, and says, how long have you been ignorant? And you say, for a long time. And then the teaching says, here's the key. Though you have been ignorant since beginningless time, you're also given a key to solve the problem. So it's not end of the world. And how do you come to the key? We call that Ishvara Anugraha, grace. There's a certain amount of movement and plowing through this huge world of options. You know how hard that is? Plowing through a world of spiritual marketplace. Everyone's trying to sell you something. You know, I cannot blame them because this veiling power operates on everyone. And when you understand this veiling power, you become a little bit more empathetic towards those people that we love, because they too are governed by the veiling power. Nobody knows everything. Nobody has access to all knowledge. Even a teacher can be a little bit abrasive because they don't have access to communication skills. They might have grown in a culture and a family that is a little bit rough, and so this comes across to the students. You see? So even a wise person, though they may understand who they are, still at the relative level, you put them inside, an airplane, they can't fly an airplane. You give them, various arts, be a dentist, you don't know how to be a dentist because you're still veiled all that information. So now can you blame anyone for being ignorant if this power is beginningless and it operates on everyone? So then how does this transform into real life application? Simply acknowledge, hey, you don't know everything. I don't know everything. We share collective ignorance, basically. Everyone does. There's not one being here who is outside, who's not subject to this power. You see, this is why it's so hard to get along. Because I try to do my best, but I never know everything about you. You try to do the best, you never know everything about me. There's disagreements, there's entanglements, and we both make a mistake. And we go, it's your fault, it's your fault. But actually, both of us are under the spell of ignorance. That's why it's so hard to get along on earth. Because nobody has all knowledge. And if you had knowledge about the other person, don't you think it would be so much easier to deal with them because you know exactly what to say? You see, just to be empathetic with another human being requires information about their situation, doesn't it? Otherwise, empathy is not possible. You see, even religious wars, it's the same thing. Oh, they're believing in that. That must be evil. It goes even at the collective level. So now I'm going to decimate all those who don't believe in my God. But I don't know that there are people just like me who too know suffering, who too know pain, who too know empathy, who too know how to, reach out and help. So ignorance of things is the root cause of all problems in the world. And every single field that's developed is just to conquer a section of that ignorance. Some call it psychologists, so now I'm going to conquer the ignorance relative to your psychology. A massage therapist, I'm going to conquer a doctor, I'm going to help you remove ignorance of not knowing what to do to take care of your body. Everything that we do is at some level governed by I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. There are more I don't knows throughout the day than I do know. And with a very limited amount of information, we try to act and make the best of our lives. Why? Because of avarana shakti of Maya. You see, sometimes people they think this liberation is knowing everything. So where is their identity now? Where is their identity? I want to know everything. The buddhi, the intellect. You see this? You will never know everything inside this human being because the mind is very limited. And sometimes there's this idea, so liberation means that I will have access to Ishvara's knowledge. And I want that. Once again, identity to buddhi. You can't know everything. You can only know one thing, knowing which everything else becomes known. But it's a different kind of knowing. It's like knowing the substance of the ring. Like you have many ornaments. I may not know that this is called a bangle or how it works or how its chains are put together. But I can look at a shop full of bangles and ornaments and so on, and I can get the substance of them. And once I know the substance, I may not know still what's the name of this. What's this called, shopkeeper? Oh, yeah, it's a necklace. Oh, okay, that's the crown jewel. Okay, thank you. So I may not know that, but I know one thing for sure. It's gold. And when I know it's gold, simultaneously, my need for knowing the details goes away. And that need for knowing the details, this is what keeps the person endlessly stuck in wanting to know 1,000 different concepts before they come to the simple truth of just knowing that one substance. So they think, no. Before I know this one substance, I have to memorize all the Upanishads. I have to, learn Sanskrit. I have to become, great at mathematics, a great thinker, and only then I can know the final truth. Once again, that is a mistake, because the truth is all those things you're studying and learning about, they're like ornaments. So how many ornaments are there? Millions. Therefore, millions of years will I spend studying them. Or take a smart approach, the intelligent approach. Get to know that substance, knowing which at once I come to know the truth of all differences. I may not still know the details, but I know what they are made of. And once I know what they are made of, I automatically know the truth of everything at once. That's Advaita. See, that's why it says here it's without a beginning or an end. It has no second. The gold, there's no second gold. It's just one gold. Therefore, in this course, this is what we are attempting to discover, that one substance, knowing which all is at once known. And this substance gets eclipsed from the verse like a tiny moon eclipsing a huge sun. Think, my goodness, this tiny moon is so tiny. And yet, from a certain standpoint, when that moon is inside my mind, it has the ability to cover that which is all pervasive. Like a little dot. How it happens, it just happens. That's all we know. That's how ignorance works. And so, when we make a mistake about what is behind the moon, what is behind this thought, what do? We project. Project so many conclusions. Let me tell you what's behind the moon. This is the birth of wrong notions, because we love to make a conclusion and say, I've got it. You know this phenomena? I've got it. Now I feel at peace because I've concluded this is a light bulb's behind the moon. I've got it. Let me go away. And the conclusions stop there. And many don't reinvestigate. So the investigation cannot stop. Now, this avarana shakti, this veiling power, look at this. By itself, do you have any problem going to sleep? Is going to sleep any issue for you? How come? I mean, in deep sleep, you're totally ignorant of everything. Look at this. You have no problems going to sleep. And in sleep, you're the most ignorant of all. You don't even know that you are. You don't even know that you're alert. You don't even know that I am. You don't even know your name. Nothing. So there's no problem being ignorant, is there? In fact, the more ignorant, the more blissful. So ignorance by itself is not a problem. If you and I are ignorant for eternal time, the irony is we would be blissful for eternal time. What's the problem then? Otherwise, if ignorance itself was the problem, this course would not be required. So one thing for sure is we know there is ignorance. And here we are. But we also know now that ignorance is not a problem. So what is a problem then? It's that which follows up after ignorance. When there is ignorance, I make a conclusion that is not keeping with the reality, and then my life lives accordingly to that. I make mistakes, and those mistakes come back as I'm unworthy, I'm small, oh no, God help me, I've gotten myself into this trouble. So what follows Avarana Shakti, the veiling power, is Vikshepa Shakti, projecting power. We project ideas, and these ideas become hurtful, and they cause big problems. Now, because this Atma is so evident to everyone, is the very reason why you're able to commit a mistake. Now, here's some logic. Can you commit a mistake if something is completely unknown? No, because there's nothing to even commit a mistake upon. When you commit a mistake, it's usually committing a mistake upon something else. So you can't commit a mistake to that which is completely unknown. If something is completely known, can you commit a mistake? No, because you completely know it. So then how, and what's the only way to commit a mistake?
You know something.
In other words, good, Carmen. You have to not know it fully, but you also have to know it partially. So because Atman is so evident to everyone as I am, nobody has a problem with this I am. Yeah, we all know I am. So it's evident at some point. But at the same time, going back to our inquiry, I always want to fill up this I am. So what does that mean? Though I know the I am, I don't completely know the I am, and then I attribute false notions onto the I am, which are, I am small, inadequate, incomplete. So it's not like everyone, it's not like you have total ignorance of I am. It's partial ignorance of I am. And that partial ignorance is just enough to make one pursue for a lifetime. And that's why we have this Shabda Pramana, the means of knowledge which removes this ignorance, covering the true nature of the I am. Now, what else does this projecting power, this projection of the wrong notions onto the I am do? What does it do? Verse 41. Tiro bhute swatmani amala tarate jovati puman anatmanam mohat aham iti shariram kalayati tataha kama krodha prabhrati bhihi amum bandhana gunaihi param vikshepa kya rajasa uru shaktihi vyathayati. Okay, so let's take an example of going to that belt. It's somewhat dark. 7 o'clock here. So you and I are going together, coming back from the beach, ready to come to class quickly. It's 7 o'clock. and it's dark, not completely light. And some person, though you're supposed to keep your belt on your pants, they just sort of took it off and they left it there to play a prank on someone. And that belt has some snake skin on it. Okay, so you don't quite see. So there are some obstructing variables there, and that is absence of full light. I have some light, but I don't have complete light. So that in between allows me to commit a mistake. And when I see that belt, or whatever it is, a branch, usually it's a branch, it's possible to also mistake. When I see that belt, I see something that's very close to it, something that you kind of seen before. And so you imagine or project a snake onto it. But here's a question. Has the snake actually appeared? Well, how come? I mean, you see the snake.
Projected on the
Yeah.
bench or belt or whatever it is.
And for whom has the snake appeared? For the one that has ignorance of what the belt looks like. If I don't know the full nature of the belt, one mind doesn't know the full nature of the belt, they will superimpose some approximate onto it. And so for them, that reality, that belt, will be as good as the snake. And then they will act accordingly to that and run away. So what does this mean? It means that when the person doesn't have, or when the person has ignorance of reality, in this case, the belt, when there is ignorance of the reality, then what follows up automatically? Projection onto reality of what it is not. When I don't have the full knowledge of something, I project something that it is not. It's a natural phenomena. So now this world is like that. An average person who wants to still see the truth, they see this world as the world. To them, they're projecting, due to the ignorance of the nature of this world, of this body, of this air that's being breathed in, of the experience, due to the ignorance of not knowing the full nature of Atma. What happens? I project world, person. Oh, you're just a person. You're not a person. You're so much more than that. All that is here is one, without a second. This is an understanding based on removing that error. Until the error is removed, what do I see? I see a person. I see this person as a separate being who has to go out there and appease myself, fulfill myself. Until the error is solved, what happens? I will make this error again and again and again. But in actuality, right now, in this moment, all that is here is one without a second. So now what do we have to do? We have to slowly peel away the layers that makes me see the snake, the snake, the snake, the snake, the snake, the snake. I have to peel that away. So now, because we project, what do we now project onto the reality? We project this expanding, contracting being. That's the snake. That's why everyone takes the I, the ego I, as the self. What is projected onto the absolute self, onto Atma? Expanding, contracting I. It has desires. So this means I am now as good as my desires. Now you try to suppress someone's desires, is that going to be a good result? No. Why? Because you're suppressing my identity. You're suppressing my existence. Because I am as good as my desires. That's why people don't like being withheld. Now don't tell me what to do, because I am as good as that which desires. I'm as good as that expanding, contracting character. Now let's begin a detailed analysis into what you are not. Section 3, differentiating Atma from Anatma, verse 45. Don't worry, I'm shuffling them around. Okay, verse 45, the process of negation. Munja adi ikam iva drishya vargat pratyancham atmanam asangam akriyam vivichya tatra pravilapya sarvam tada atmana tishtati yahasa muktaha. He is free, he or she is free, who separates the unassociated, actionless, innermost self, the subject, from the whole host of objects. As the pith is separated from the munja grass, or the husk is separated from the rice kernel, he is free who resolves everything in the self and stays by knowledge in that very self. Okay, so there are two parts that I like to cover in this verse. First separates from the self and then resolves everything into the self. So this is a two-part process. So how do you come to the final reality as yourself? This is the question being asked now. And there are two steps that all Upanishads talk about. Now, whether you pick this out or not, this is verbalizing it out loud. The first step is you have to first separate objects from awareness. You have to separate anything that is internally known to you and externally known to you. It has to be recognized as anatma, not self. Whatever is internally happening in your mind or in your body or in your life is anatma. Whatever is happening outside right now, sounds, even this teacher, seat, your body, everything has to be recognized as anatma. This is the first step. And this separation is not physical. It's an intellectual separation. In other words, I have to recognize what is it that I am separating. So we have to mention those things that are not you. Just like I have to mention the color in that crystal. The red is not you. The blue is not you. Now, fortunately, I don't have to point out 10 million things that are not you, but only 5 basic things that includes not you. So this will be firstly done like this. This is called neti, negation. Now, once we negate, then you'll be asking, okay, so if I've negated the world and I've negated everything as not self, and I alone am the self, isn't that a contradiction of oneness? Because by definition, oneness doesn't exclude everything. So what do you have to do? You have to bring back, you have to reintroduce, you have to bring back everything you've excluded, you have to resolve it into yourself. So first we negate, and then we reclaim what we negated, and we resolve it into the self. And this is why you have Sarvam Brahma Kalu Idam, or Sarva Idam Kalu Brahma, all that is here is Brahman. So if all that is here is Brahman, then by definition, I can't exclude the world. I can't exclude you. I can't exclude anything, because there's only one without a second. Therefore, the second step only comes later. Now we engage in the first step of negation. So let's start with verse 46, the food sheath, or the food kosha. Deha ayam ana bhavanaha anamayaha tu koshaha cha anena jivati vinashyati tad vihinaha. Twak charma mamsa rudhira asti purisha rashihi na ayam swayam bhavitum arhati nitya shuddha. Ana means food and maya means modification. So now what is your physical body? It is a modification of food. That means your physical body is born by food. Parents co-create. Parents eat food. Those nutrients get passed onto your own body. It is sustained by food, and it dies by the lack of food. That means your body is nothing but food. It's just a modification of all of the lovely tomatoes and rice bowls and teas and carrots and cucumbers and paneer toast sandwich you've ever had. Okay, you can add a few of your own inside. Yeah, coffee and so on. That's it. Your body is just food. Isn't this amazing? We find food attractive. Oh, I'm going to go to a dating site and find a ginormous carrot. I'm not going to date. I'm going to take this carrot out. She's going to sit in front of me, and you and I are going to now eat food to continue being food. That's crazy. It's crazy business, isn't it? You see, sometimes when we eat, what do we think? How strong will I be? Oh, how many carbs am I taking in? Oh, will this make me fatter? Oh, will this make me thinner? So in other words, our identity is very tied in with the food. And furthermore, this identity becomes further complexion. We body shame others. We body shame our own bodies. We say, oh, they got a chubby body. Oh, they're like this, they're like that. So in other words, we put the entire person based on the physical shape of food that sculpted itself into flesh. And then it becomes another psychological issue. And you say, oh, I don't like my food. I don't like my food, my body food. I want to, eat more food to bigger. I want to eat less food so I can be smaller. Oh, I'm too ugly. This is ugly food. I'm going to now improve the food. I'm going to comb the food. I'm going to beautify this food. I'm going to put perfume so the food smells, for others. It attracts others. And it gives a good impression of this food. And then the body dies, of course, and it becomes food for animals and insects and worms. Now, they're very, your food is very tasty to them. So they're having a party. They're all filled up. They visit every day to take a little bit more food. This is real life. Go to Varanasi and see, the burning bodies there. Bone falling down. A dog is eating. I was like, oh, what is a dog eating? And I realized it's a bone that just fell off from a burning body. It really makes you humble. You go, wow, this is how it is. And I stood there all day actually in Varanasi just to appreciate the other side of life. In that smoke, I stood all day just to go, okay, contemplating, getting real down to earth. This is what's going to happen to everyone. So much complexion is put into this food. And that's why food is such a big industry. Because I am food. So I need food to improve this food. Now Adi Shankara has quite direct language. So he calls it, this body is a pack of dermis, epidermis, flesh, bone, what does he say? It's a bag of skin. It's a one ginormous bag stuffed with, feces and blood and flesh and bone. And this bag I find attractive. It's very hard to date in Advaita Vedanta when you talk like this. Exactly. So I hope I don't scar you for life now. Single for life. So now you walk around, you're seeing big bags of food stuffed with feces and flesh and bone and blood. Okay? This is the reality. It's funny on one hand, but on the other hand, it's a total reality. And imagine if you take your 1 millimeter of skin, you just peel it off. Would you date that person? Hey, it's 1 millimeter of skin is what is the difference between I will marry you and get out of here. It's amazing how relative this is. It's crazy. And this is what we buy into. Now, of course, there is there is a transactional purpose to this, to this thing, so I don't mean to put down anything. But once in a while, we need to analyze and get a reality check. That's all we're doing now. We're not putting down and saying, oh, never again. We're just getting a reality check. And it shows you that if your finger is made of food, then so is your thinking brain made of food. So is your thinking heart made of food. Everything about it is just food. And every time we say, I'm going to, make myself, I'm going to fast, I'm going to, exercise. On one hand, it's good. But see, it's very tricky here. For every plus, there's a minus. So though I'm getting healthy and I'm staying fit, I'm reinforcing I am as good as this bag of flesh. So you can't quite win here. On one hand, you're beautiful on Instagram photos and everything else. But on the other hand, every time I take that photo of myself, upload it, I am as good as that. It deepens my identity with this bag of food. This is the other side to it. And sometimes we even deny ourselves pleasures. So we say, no, I want to, like tapas, because this is me. I want to be pure. I want to deny myself pleasures because there's such identity with the physical body.
In your case, like you take your body out for runs.
Yeah.
But then it's different, no?
Yeah, so there is still that transactional usefulness. For example, if you're, in 60 years, what's the common rate of, premature death, 60 onwards? It's falling down. So now there's a transactional usefulness to taking care of one's body for the sake of remaining relatively healthy throughout. So otherwise, you can always go one step ahead and go, okay, so I'm now going to be the world's fastest runner, which is also okay for the one who wants that. That's okay. No, it's for the sake of the future. It's the sake of preserving the body, healthy, meditating, stretching, right? Being able to sit down on the floor. All these things are important. Tai Chi, for example. Tai Chi for health. This is very good for preserving your health. Because you see people, getting, slower and slower as they go into their 70s and 80s. And I observe this and I go, this body will be 70 and 80 years old. So what can I do right now to help it out? Yes, it is a bag of skin, but transactionally, what will I do to make sure it's healthy? And then I see also, when you have family who don't take care of themselves, that also has an extra impact on you. And you say, thank you for showing me what not to do. I will not be like this. Yeah. And also, you don't have to turn this into some, weird philosophy now and say, oh, now let me not speak of this body as I, because it will sound very weird to people. This body, this body is now saying, let this body hug you. So you can still speak normally, but there's also time to practice again and again that this body is just a pack of dermis, epidermis, flesh, bone. And that's a private contemplation that you have with yourself. Otherwise, at the level of the world, normal. This body, it only becomes a kosha. Don't call the body a kosha. It only becomes a kosha. See, kosha is that which as though covers. It doesn't actually cover the self, because the self can't be covered. It's all pervasive. It's indivisible. So it can't be covered. But when I put my identity into the body, and I'm worried about the body, and I'm so kind of obsessed over the body, that obsession over the body, then it becomes a kosha. It becomes an as though covering. It covers my nature, and so naturally the body is going to die. I am going to die along with it. This is the problem. Otherwise, this whole thing about just enjoying the body and putting it through basic exercises and taking it out and taking care of it, the only instrument you've got. There's nothing wrong with that. What do we then do about this? How do we kind of help ourselves out? Well, you can still look at your body as a body, but it requires a repetitive contemplation, doesn't it? A repetitive thinking. This is just a bag of food. Food. This is just food. It's sustained by food, born from food. It will go back into food. It's just food. And you're like, oh, okay. And then slowly, through this repetitive thinking, it starts to lose a grip on you. You see, I'll show you how strong the identity is. We say, no, I'm not the body. No, I know this is easiest. This is like level 1. So we say it is so easy, and yet the person still wants secretly hits of dopamine release. Through drugs, through this, through that, through fancy experiences, they want secretly that dopamine release is just chemicals. It's basically food in the form of chemicals. So you can see how deep this identity is to the body. And then one wants to, still sort of please it, which is okay. But there's that point where, I have to. It becomes now a binding desire. I have to please it. So it shows you that my I, every time I allow for that to happen, I strengthen this identity and it becomes harder to just let this body be Ishwara's instrument. Purnamadav, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnam eva avashishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.